Hey folks, welcome back, and following up on the Volkswagen CC project. I want to do a little intern video here because one day, many moons from now, this engine is going to be a historical item. As you all know, the VR6 been around for about 30 some odd years, but Volkswagen's slowly phasing them out in the US. So parts are getting harder to find, and as you all know, I'll walk over here and show you the block. Trying to find a block in really good condition right now that hadn't been ragged out, somewhat difficult. Now this engine is not a turbo engine. However, you can convert it very easy. Basically build you up some forged internals and change out the crank and put you some good race quality bearings in there. I would. Molly rings on your pistons. And make sure you got forged connecting rods in your pistons, and get you some quality, Wiseco, maybe J&E pistons in there if you can find them, and then go ahead and bolt it back up and then put you a turbo kit on here. Now, I'm not going that far. I'm going to leave it naturally aspirated, and but I am going to build it into a quality engine. I don't turn and skimp. So come on over here to the workbench. I'm going to do a little intern video because a lot of folks maybe in the future are going to ask these questions. And those of you that are out there working on VR6 probably come across the same kind of things in the questions and notice something different about the pistons. So I've got the pistons arranged as they would go in the engine. And well, let's start over here. So when you drop a piston and your rod down into the cylinder bore, as you know, the VR6 has depending on what year, it has a slight cant to the pistons. As you can see, it's kind of sloped or slanted on the top, okay? Thicker on this side at the top and kind of skinny on that side. And the reason for that is because the piston actually rides in there at an angle like this, okay? And they're using a single flat cylinder head for all 6 cylinders. So that's one of the engineering feats that Volkswagen came out with, and actually goes back to a car, I believe, in the 1920s or so. Actually came out with it, and then it disappeared, and then Volkswagen brought it back and called it the Rheinmotor. So, as you look at that piston, I want you to look at a couple of things. So the first thing is, right there, you see the thickness on this one side. This would be the outside of the cylinder, or engine block, and then on this side, see how it's thinner from the top to the end of the skirt? It's shorter, so that would be on the internal side of the cylinder block. And if you look at these pistons, you have sort of, I'm sorry, let me get this in focus, but you have sort of a discoloration on top and below the first compression ring there, okay? Now, that was unique to the VR6s that Volkswagen used in their CCs and in the Passats. And the other cylinders and the other pistons did not have that coloration, those 2 little brown bands, if you will. And so this is a cast piston on a cast connecting rod, but they went in and they took a torch system and they kind of heated that up and kind of forged it, if you will. So that is a kind of a unique item to this. Now, they also have the kind of very minute grooves in all of the metal surfaces that will face. You can almost see it better here where that black is worn off there. You see those grooves in there is to help hold the oil and on the surface. It's also for heat dissipation, okay? Kind of like a radiator in a car or an air conditioning system. All right, so when I build an engine, I always go and I do the measuring of the cylinders. And then I get the bore gauge out, I measure and I find out, what kind of shape the cylinder's in. Do I have to, good crosshatch? Am I gonna be able to rehone? Do I have to go to oversized piston, etc.? Then I actually find out, should I buy brand new pistons And with Volkswagen, you buy the pistons, you get the piston rings with them, as long with the wrist pin and your circlips there. So, you know, it's always a dilemma. Do you go ahead and do it, or do you reuse your pistons and re-ring? Well, the cost right now, as of today in 2023, was pretty much a wash to buy a set of rings to go on the pistons, or just get a set of pistons with the rings and the pins. So I opted to go ahead and go with the entire setup there. And as you all know, when you get these the piston kit, the rings are already mounted on the pistons. So you have to do the, you know, unspool them, take them off, get your set of rings over here, and then go mount your measuring and your weighing. So as you can see, I am old school. I use the micrometer. I've got it set here. You can't really see the numbers on here, but it's 3.5077 is the, in inches, is the 88.945 millimeters, what the piston should be. And so if we grab one of these pistons, and I'm gonna flip it upside down, make it easier because I'm using one hand to hold the camera here. I've got my micrometer set here, right? There it is, there's the numbers, zoom in. And then I'm going to go, I like to use, see that that little band where the cross hatches are? I like to use right there. So what I do is I go down and make sure that the micrometer will go right around it, okay? And if that's the case, then you know you've got a good piston. If your micrometer just slips off, well then you know you've got a worn piston. And if it does something, let me set this up so it doesn't do it. So if you go in here and you go like this, and you get right there and it stops and you can't go anymore. Let me see if I can do it at an angle. There we go. Boom, 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 right? See? That means your piston skirt is larger than what your micrometer is set, and likely your piston is oversized for the size of bore that you're dealing with, all right? So the next thing I like to do, after I've got the rings off and after I got the pistons laid out, I get myself one of these sharp little pointy magic marker, just a Sharpie with a real fine point tip on it. And I get just a regular old, you can get these on Amazon. I've had this for quite a while, but you get this little scale. This is just a bakery scale or kitchen scale. Turn it on here, hopefully there we go. And make sure it's set for ounces, because you can change the unit, right, to pounds, fluid ounces again in metric, grams, milliliters, and ounces. So I'm going to go to ounces, and let's go ahead and get one of our pistons. Make sure you find the flattest part of the piston, and on these it's the piston skirt. Sometimes you're going to use the crown or the top of the piston, but on this one I'm going to go ahead and set it on here and follow with me. 15.45 ounces, and we're going to pick it up and we're going to turn it about 90 degrees right back where we had it on the scale and set it down again. 15.45. Okay, that matches. We're going to pick it up again and turn it another 90 degrees and set it down. 15.45. Okay, so I know that this piston weighs, without the pin, without the clips, with clean, you know, make sure you got all your burrs off or what have you. This piston weighs 15.45 ounces. So I get my magic marker and I write on the top of it, 15.45. Then I do the same thing with each other piston. And then I do the same thing with the wrist pins, okay? You never know, you might get a bum wrist pin. I've already done these, but each one of them, I've written on there, 2.55 ounces, okay? So if you want to, you can break this down into grams, into pounds, decimal places. Let's go to grams and find out, because there is a difference here. You see, I found 15.45, 15.30. That's a 0.15 ounce difference, okay? And then with this one, it's a 0.10 difference between this and this, okay? So let's do this in grams, and let's go to the 15.45 ounces, and let's see what this shows up as grams. 438 grams. I'm not going to turn it. Let's just get this other one that's 15.30. Remember, 438 grams, 434 grams. So we're 4 grams lighter in that piston than we are in this one, okay? So once you find out your weights, then that's going to tell you where you want to put your pistons in your engine block. Now, the reason I wanted to do this video is because if you look at these pistons, that's how they're going to go in the cylinder block, okay? Just like that, okay? I cannot turn this one and put it over here and put this one over here, okay? Like that, okay? It looks right, but it's not. Can you see the difference? Can you see the difference? Look at your cuts for your valves. See this? Okay. Look at your combustion area or bowl on the top of your piston in this one. See that? See how they're different? So you have to make sure that you have your clearance areas for your valves, first off, facing the right way, but second off, you see the arrows? They've got to point to the front of the engine, the front being the damper side, or the what would be the radiator side on the, well, I guess transverse, it would be on the passenger side, okay? But the front of the engine, okay? Cylinder number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? All right. Now, not only are these little cutouts important for your making sure you have clearance for your valves, because if you switch these around, you're not going to have clearance and your valves are going to come down. They're going to hit the piston. You're probably going to break 2 valves at one time. And then you've got a problem. Okay. And the other thing is this is very important, is because once you get these laid out like that, now your connecting rods mount. And remember, when you take these apart, they have the stamps on the bearing shell cap of your connecting rod here. All right, and those all are supposed to face the same way. So in this case is a, what's that say, 5-5. Don't worry about the 610, but 5-5. So if I had another piston rod, it would need to read just like that, and another one just like that. That's important to get all of these connecting rods in their piston, okay? So if I flip this around like this, yeah, that looks right. Yeah, I got the slope of the piston, I got the clearance, I've got the valve clearance, but now I flip this over and my number's upside down. Now I got a problem. Now I know it's incorrectly assembled because these are cast connecting rods, which means they are bolted together, cast, and then machined on both sides as well as in the bearing diameter. And if you'll see, there's 2 little notches for your bearings to set in. See those? They're both on the one side of the connecting rod. Now, some engines, you'll have a slot over there on the top and a slot over here on the bottom, and then the number will be the same face, facing the same way. So remember when you're doing that. And then if you take a piston off of the connecting rod, do not reuse the circlips. Go get new circlips. Very important. Those are spring steel. And if you try to reuse those, they're going to get a little groove in them from taking them out with a screwdriver or a pick or whatever you use. They're not going to be the same tension on there. You're probably going to lose a circlip in your engine, ruin your cylinder, ruin your engine, okay? Alrighty, so The other thing that I discovered on the new updated pistons are they have the updated oil control ring. Remember, Volkswagen had a huge issue with overuse of oil on their engines, their 2.0 turbos, their VR motors, you know, their non-aspirated 5 cylinders in the Volkswagen Beetles that came out. Remember, their oil control ring were basically 2 pieces of steel, right? The 2 rings, and then there was like a spring that went around. Well, they went back to this wavy style waffle ring for an oil control ring. And what I discovered when I took this engine apart, and I'm going to go back over here to show you one of the pistons. It's going to be very hard to zoom in on there, but it's got the old style spring oil control ring. Do you see that right there? Okay. You still have your steels, your 2 steels, top and bottom, but they're kind of mounted together, and then there's a kind of a, I don't know, plastic in there, or nylon, or whatever that stuff is. See what the grooves or the holes to allow the oil to go in there? So this is bad. If you find these, take them out, get rid of them, and use the new style waffle oil control rings. This style right here goes all the way back to like in the 30s and 40s on engines back then, okay? For some reason, someone invented those spring style oil control rings, thinking it would be much easier to assemble and cut down on time and everything like that. But yeah, these are bad. Actually, let me see if I can't pull one of these off and just show you. Yeah, it's going to be very hard to do. Actually, that's probably good right there. See if I can't zoom in. Do you see that? Do you see all the carbon? Now, once that gets crudded up, that means no more oil can go through those holes, and no more lubrication is going through through the holes in the back here. See those 2 little, looks like snake bite almost. Those 2 little holes right there and there. Those are actually drilled all the way through to that oil control ring. You see that hole? And you see that hole? To help lubricate your wrist pin. Without oil, you're not getting any lubrication on your wrist pin, and pretty soon wear happens. Now you got a cylinder that, or a piston that's flopping around on its wrist pin, and not doing much at controlling oil either. Now we went back and I showed you the bearings. There's no grooves, there's no marks, there's nothing like that. All it is that little, whatever that graphene coating has been rubbed off. So I will replace the wrist pin, the connecting rod bearings. However, looking at these cylinders that have, I mean, look at the crosshatch on there. Look at that. I've cleaned them up as much as I could. I haven't taken the nylon brush to get this out. You know, the carbon in the combustion area up there. But there is no ridge on the top or the bottom. It's just basically polished the crosshatch down. So I'm thinking a very quick run through in a hone with, now there's a couple of different kinds you can use, but you know, just one of these, this is, I don't know who makes this one. Napa, I think, is where I got this performance tool. It's just it's one of the old school, you know, whatever, 200 grit or whatever. Just throw it on a drill, make sure your tension's right. Zip, 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 zip. Do it about 5 times. We got our crosshatch back. That's all we're gonna need to do. We'll do a bore measurement again. We'll make sure our piston and our clearance is there. And then we'll get back into putting this engine back together because, yeah, I don't think the machine shop even needs to touch this block. I measured all the bores. There is no out around, zero taper, and everything measures right within spec. I think the spec says what is it, 89 millimeters to 89.010 millimeters. Everything was 89. I mean, there was absolutely no fluctuation on that dial bore gauge. And I went back and looked at it again and again and again, and everything's going to be great with this. So we will take a look at those crankshaft bearings. Obviously, we've got to get new head bolts because those are torque to yield tension, right? The torques, and then we'll go ahead and get, these are torque to yield as well, your connecting rod bolts, and then the crank bolts, and then we'll start getting everything back together, and then we'll look at the bearings on that crank. I doubt there's going to be any issue with them because look at how clean those rod bearings are. So, very minimal polishing, probably with an old sock and a shoestring. Polish them up and put some bearings in there, slap it back together. Got all our seals coming, and we'll be ready to slap this engine back together as soon as we get parts in the next couple of weeks or so. My replacement oil pan is supposed to be here on Monday, and we'll see if we can't go from there. And let's see, what else we got going on over here? Oh, just a lot of cleaning and stuff like that. I need to get into that cylinder head and clean all that stuff out. I've already talked about the coolant issues. That stop lead or whatever in the hell they used in there. There's some more. Look at this. Look at this. Don't mix your coolants, guys. Come on. And, look at that's an intake valve right there. That's as bad as they got. So do I pull them out or do I just clean them? And then I've got a fancy little brush here that'll get down in there all the way to the other side. And, maybe some gum out or something like that, seafoam. Let them soak and then scrub them and get all that carbon off of this. And probably just put it back together. I mean, it's only got 130,000 miles. These VR6s and these CCs, looking at this block, this thing would have went probably at least 300,000 miles. And I don't know how that transmission is going to look. We might get in there and double check on the bands and the abrasive discs and the steels and see how they are in there. But then, of course, we're going to have to get some parts for the transmission. I'm not sure how easy that's going to be to get. But I have gone so far to already get my replacement crack pipe, if you will, or the coolant tube, thermostat housing it's called. So that came in yesterday. And then I've got like gaskets, right? This exhaust gasket right here is $8. So I had to buy a new one of those, obviously. And we'll see if we don't need to get a new roller for our fuel pump here. And then I still talked about I was going to go ahead and try to clean that up. I'll see if I can. This is plastic. So maybe they make a metal one. But all these little seals like this, I've got those ordered from Volkswagen Direct. And then a lot of people were saying, hey, you might want to replace that crank or your knock sensors. Well, this is just dirty. I think it'll clean up fine. And then the other one is, I think it's in this box actually. And it's because you got one knock sensor on the front and one on the back because you got two different banks of cylinders. One to check these three and one to check the back three. But yeah, looking forward to getting this baby back together. And I think she's going to run great. I'm always looking positive. Hopefully it's going to work out. I know I'm going to get to a point to where, oh man, I forgot that one seal. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ones that I'm having a hard time finding are these Vanos sensor seals that go on the upper cam cover right here. Okay, this goes on your upper cylinder head, okay? And then these two sensors right here are your control units. They slide through these little grommets, right? These donuts. I'm having a hard time finding just the seals. I found you can buy the whole replacement plate that comes with the seals, and then you just unplug your sensors and put that back in, but I can't find just those 2 seals. So this might be a little bit of a fun thing because I'm not going to reuse those. Those are very brittle rubber. They've been in there for a long time and been spinning around, and yeah, a lot of oil going through them. No. I asked a Volkswagen mechanic that lives down the street about this little plastic cover thing on here, and he's like, yeah, we just tear those off because they do absolutely nothing. All it is an oil slinger, and basically underneath there you already have, if you can see right there, you've already got a couple of little nubs on several different places that it's going to sling the oil around anyway. So yeah, his advice was just take that off, because 2 things: it's going to eventually break more, or B, it's going to rattle around like this, and when it's going to sound just like that in the engine bay, right? So just pop it off, get rid of it, no big deal. It's been like that forever, and it's running. It's nothing else is affected. It's not even, clamped down for any reason. The front one doesn't have it on the intake side. So, anyway, there we go. And then all the gaskets and seals. And if anybody out there knows where you can get these little seals, or grommets, I guess they would call, that slide on your coil packs like this, so they'll seal up the top of your valve cover, please let me know. I have looked at ECS Tuning, I've looked at Euro Parts, I've looked at DAP. I might need to send an email to Paul over at DAP and see, and maybe the Humble Mechanic, I shoot him a comment maybe on YouTube and see. Watch a lot of his videos. He's a good resource as well. So, and then, one last thing before I go, I want to talk to you about, if you see your piston rings, they have writing. See how that says standard STD, and then something else on that side. And then this one has writing on it, BHK, and I don't know what that means. That is the top. So that would face up when you put the piston rings on. And you always want to make sure you put your oil control ring, your second compression ring, and your top compression ring in the right grooves. Remember, folks? And, obviously you want to get those in your cylinders, and you want to measure your end gap, because if you put them in there and they have got a overlap, or if they're too far apart, they're not going to do any good, okay? So remember that. Let's get on it. Get out there with me, start working on these cars, get them back in the road, save your money. Stop buying. I saw the other day, 10 years you can get a car loan. 10 years. You could have a kid and get them into 1st and 2nd, 3rd, 5th grade by the time you paid off that loan. Please. Common sense prevails. Please go out there, find you an old car, 10, 12, 15 years. Look it over. If you need to replace an engine or a transmission, you're seeing this old busted guy doing it in his garage with minimal tools and just patience. Come on, folks. Get out there with me. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. We're in the United States. It doesn't matter if you're working on Volkswagen, Hyundai, Kia, Porsche, Bentley, Chevy, Ford, whatever. Get out here. Let's do this. It's a good time to get your mind off of stuff. It sure helps me. Helps you get out here using your brain, your thought processes. You're thinking about stuff other than the day. Look at this. This is fun. This is fun. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll join you in a little bit, and we'll jump back into our engine build and get it back going. Take care. Bye.